For 2 millennia, we have strictly managed the translation of Luke 9:29. The flock believes the Transfiguration was a passive miracle. But we within the Holy See know the original Greek means a molecular conversion into luminous energy. He was not reflecting light, he became it. And worst of all, he was teaching them to do the same. We excised his instructions from the canon, locking the true texts in our restricted archives. Today, you and I are going to unpack this dangerous secret. I will reveal the exact light-body activation sequence he used, the environmental conditions, and the technique we spent centuries suppressing. We hid these methods to maintain absolute control over human salvation. But the vault is open. Let me show you what we buried. Soon you will hold the details we fought centuries to conceal. We authorized translations that read harmlessly. His face changed. His clothes became dazzling. It frames him as an untouchable deity. We needed this to seem impossible for ordinary people. But behind closed doors, we knew the truth. Luke was a physician using the strict medical vocabulary of his time. He wrote that the face became heteron. We tell the worlds that means changed. But heteron dictates a fundamentally different category of existence. He bypassed the common Greek words for a simple alteration. He chose the precise philosophical term for entirely different orders of reality. We always understood Luke was documenting flesh converting into a different type of matter. We just made sure you never knew. Consider the word exastrapton. Our pulpits preach his clothes were just shining. We hide that the root word means a violent electrical discharge erupting from the inside out. He was not reflecting heaven. Luke used the exact ancient medical term for a body releasing electromagnetic power. The ancients knew humans produce an internal fire, cultivated through focus. We buried those practices. We always knew Luke was describing flesh emitting so much bioelectrical light it illuminated his garments from within. He documented a man converting into pure light. This was biological activation, not a divine vision. Physics proves matter is condensed energy. Change the vibration, change the flesh. We realized this was pure science, which is exactly why the Holy See locked it away as untouchable mysticism. Today, you and I are going to unpack the greatest secret we ever buried. Down in the restricted vaults beneath the Vatican, we have always known the truth about the Gospel of Luke. Jesus was not performing a divine miracle. He was demonstrating a repeatable biological technology. He consciously raised his cellular frequency until his body dissolved into visible light. If the faithful understood he was teaching a method rather than proving his divinity, our church would crumble instantly. The key is the pineal gland, the crystalline structure deep within your skull. We watched in quiet panic as modern science caught up, when Rick Strassman mapped the dimethyltryptamine pathways. Those calcite crystals transduce electromagnetic energy, bridging the divine without our priesthood. Here is the dangerous truth we worked so hard to erase. This biological gateway does not open randomly. The texts we burned detailed precise meditative disciplines to trigger this neurochemical cascade on demand, through directed breathing, fasting, and specific sleep cycles. We outlawed these methods because they threatened our absolute monopoly on salvation. When Luke chapter 9 describes Moses and Elijah, the Greek word we deliberately mistranslated is opthentes. It means they entered the visible spectrum. They had activated their own light bodies centuries prior. When the Nazarene raised his vibrational field, the disciples expanded their perceptual range, bringing those ancient prophets into view. It is pure, terrifying physics we could never let the masses understand. Look closely at the scriptures we allowed to remain, and you will see the cracks in our theological armor. Why Moses and Elijah? They were the documented precedents. We could not erase the truth entirely, so we mistranslated it. Exodus originally stated Moses' face sent forth visible beams, projecting physical radiation after 40 days of fasting. We ordered translators to soften it to a gentle radiance. Sculptors who read the true Hebrew carved him with horns until we suppressed it. 2 Kings describes Elijah's bodily ascension, a biological transition beyond matter that left a transmittable electromagnetic field his student could physically feel. We locked this truth behind our walls. A population that knows how to transcend death does not need a Vatican to save them. Deep in the restricted Vatican archives, we have always known what the Gospel of Luke was actually hiding. Let's look at this together. The Transfiguration was never just a miracle meant to awe the peasants. It was a literal activation of a luminous energy body. The Nazarene wasn't performing magic. He was generating a localized frequency field, pulling his disciples into that same altered state. When the texts mention Moses and Elijah, they confirm that masters who complete this energetic shift can interact with anyone matching their vibration. We locked this truth away centuries ago, falsely labeling it as pure metaphor. But the original authors knew they were documenting a repeatable biological metamorphosis. Rome simply could not allow that level of direct human empowerment to ever see the light of day. When the Dead Sea Scrolls surfaced in 1947, the Vatican panicked. They exposed the Essene light body methods the Nazarenes secretly studied. We quickly restricted the Thanksgiving hymn, catalogued as 1QH, where the author claims to shine with glorious light. The Hebrew text uses the word or, meaning literal visible luminescence, entirely destroying our narrative of mere spiritual metaphor. Initiates used pre-dawn techniques to make their flesh emit physical light. We also seized manuscript 4Q491, where a mortal is counted among divine beings. They achieved a biological shift from dense matter into kavod, a state of radiant visible energy. The hierarchy knew this was a reproducible science of human ascension, and we did everything possible to erase it. Locked beneath the apostolic palace, the true war scroll reveals our greatest secret. We tell the world it describes a literal war of light and darkness, but our scholars know it is an internal, physiological manual. Initiates would shine progressively, undergoing a gradual biological evolution into pure energy. The community rule scroll even details a luminous fire opening in the central chest. The Nazarene's transfiguration wasn't proof of his untouchable divinity, as our dogma strictly claims. It was an advanced demonstration of Essene techniques. He showed his students a fully realized luminous shift, proving ordinary humans could achieve this exact same radiant state. This truth threatened our authority. We built a massive global empire of stone and doctrine, purely to ensure that no one would ever remember how to activate this power themselves. Deep within the Vatican archives, we guard the unredacted truth about Mount Tabor. The canonical Gospels openly admit the disciples were entirely confused. If Christ merely intended to prove his divinity, the message would have been obvious. But Luke 9:32 reveals a biological secret we have spent centuries suppressing. Peter and the others were crushed by sleep. Their nervous systems were actually shutting down, overwhelmed by a massive energetic frequency. Modern biophysics recognizes this as a protective protocol against severe neurological damage. Yet they forced themselves awake. The original Greek text uses the word diagregoreo, meaning a sheer act of will. By remaining conscious inside that terrifying field, their neural pathways entrained to Christ's elevated state. They were not witnessing a supernatural miracle. They were undergoing an evolutionary upgrade. Today, you and I are going to unpack the greatest secret Rome ever kept. Our magnificent basilicas, our entire empire of faith, are built upon a profound misunderstanding. Modern neuroscience now confirms what Christ was actually doing: neural coherence entrainment. He used his own activated state to upgrade their neurology through proximity. But Peter missed the point entirely. He immediately wanted to build 3 tents to create physical shrines. He wanted to worship the phenomenon rather than internalize the technology. For 2,000 years, the Church has aggressively capitalized on Peter's mistake. We built a religion of external devotion, constructing towering cathedrals where the masses come to worship a memory. It was far safer to command reverence for a unique savior than to teach ordinary people how to achieve that exact same biological transformation themselves. The scriptures describe a cloud overshadowing them, interrupting Peter's foolishness. Deep inside our locked vaults, we know the Greek word episkiadzo does not refer to natural weather. It is the exact same term used when the Holy Spirit overshadowed Mary. Ancient philosophers understood this as a dense, luminous energy field, the divine intelligence descending into physical form. And the voice echoing from that frequency gave one explicit command: listen to him. It did not tell them to worship him. It demanded they pay attention to a specific biophysical technology. Christ was teaching a practice for activating the human light body, not founding a theology. Yet Rome chose the shrines. Let us look at the three hidden conditions Christ used for this activation, starting with the absolute necessity of literal, high-altitude elevation. Listen closely, because you and I are going to open the vault today. We always made sure the faithful built their churches in the low valleys, surrounded by the heavy interference of daily life. Our secret archives show exactly why the Nazarene chose Mount Tabor, rising 1,886 feet above the Galilee. At that altitude, the air thins, blood rushes to the brain. The pineal gland starts flooding the system with natural chemicals we dare not name in the Catechism. The atmosphere presses down, ringing with the Earth's 7.83 Hz frequency. We buried this raw biophysics under strict dogma because when a human mind aligns with that mountain frequency, it no longer needs a priest to speak to God. The public doctrine calls it divine favor, but we inside the walls know it was simple physics. He isolated himself in a clean electromagnetic space to trigger light body activation. Test it yourself at 1,000 feet above the grid, far from our power lines, and you will see what we have been hiding. It is also why he took only Peter, James, and John up that slope. We teach the masses this was a choice of holy leadership, a convenient lie. It was a calculated measurement of nervous system capacity. He was preparing to transmit frequencies the others simply could not survive. In our unredacted records of Gethsemane and the resurrection of Jairus' daughter, the pattern holds. He chose the only three bodies wired to absorb the raw shock of the divine. There is a terrifying reason we locked these practices away. When an unprepared nervous system touches this power, the result is spiritual psychosis. I have read the secret asylum logs beneath the Vatican. Monks driven mad by delusions, destroyed by premature activation. The Nazarene knew this. We kept the flock safe by removing the instruction manual entirely. If you want to hold that raw wire, you must maintain steady concentration for 30 unbroken minutes. You need emotional stability that will not crack under extreme pressure. You must face your deepest trauma before you attempt to shatter the illusion of reality. We did not hide these physical truths merely to control the masses. We buried them because the sheer force of it will burn an unready mind straight to ash. These practices work, which is why we had to redefine prayer itself. We told the world it meant reciting words, begging a distant sky for favors. But the original Greek manuscripts we locked away used the word proseuchesthai. It means a sustained state of altered consciousness. He held that frequency until physical metamorphosis occurred. We systematically purged these technical instructions from the canonical Bible. We thought we had burned it all, until 1945, when the Nag Hammadi Sands gave up the Gospel of Philip. That forbidden text reveals the secret we tried to erase. Light and darkness, life and death. They are exactly the same thing, dissolving into one origin. To realize this is to become eternal, and an eternal mind can never be ruled by Rome. You and I need to look at the Gospel of Philip. We suppress this text because it warns that our core theological terms, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, resurrection, are deliberate obscurations. We weaponized these words to blind the public. To early initiates, the Holy Spirit meant energetic activation. Resurrection was just light body transformation. Then Philip gave away the ultimate key. He revealed the secret technique is an internal vibration, a silent frequency sounded in the mind. It is the exact same neurological mechanism used in Tibetan Buddhism, Sufi mysticism, and Kabbalah. The highest ranks of the Church always knew the kingdom of heaven was a physical state of consciousness, accessed through internal sound. We just found it far more effective to control the world by selling it as a paradise you enter after death. Beneath St. Peter's Basilica, we guard these forbidden texts for a reason. The Gospel of Philip whispers a dangerous heresy, claiming the Father and the Son are not external authorities, but internal realities. It teaches the kingdom of heaven is a physiological state activated through hidden practices, turning the human body into pure, unseeable light. When we secured the Nag Hammadi cache, we found the Gospel of Thomas echoing the same threat. Jesus telling his followers to split wood or lift a stone to find him. It equates simple human consciousness with the fundamental light of the universe, a truth now echoing in their modern physics. If the masses discover that the divine spark is already within them, requiring no priest and no altar, the entire foundation of our holy authority will crumble into dust. We have always known about the light hidden within the human vessel. Deep in our archives, we guard the true instructions for this internal radiance. The early mystics understood the practice requires a singular focus until the light actually bleeds through the flesh. We locked away the Pistis Sophia centuries ago, precisely because it contained the raw mechanics of this process. It speaks of 5 words of power: Zama, Zama, Oza, Rachama, Ozai. These are not prayers of submission. They are precise acoustic triggers designed to activate the crown, the third eye, and the heart. When someone sounds these vibrations internally, it forces a biological transfiguration. Focus on the pineal center in your skull, silently repeating a single syllable, and you bypass our control entirely. We spent 2 millennia ensuring you never learned how. Let us look at exactly why we built our empire the way we did. Whether you use the traditional Om or the syllables we tried to burn, the physical reaction is undeniable. 15 minutes of internal resonance creates heat, pressure, and expanding vision within your skull. We could never allow you to experience that. We deliberately rewrote the Transfiguration accounts to protect our global monopoly. If the flock realized the Nazarene was demonstrating a physical technology they could trigger themselves, our entire institution would collapse. You would suddenly realize you do not need our priests, our sacraments, or our stone cathedrals. By altering the original Greek texts, we turned an active blueprint for human ascension into a passive miracle only a divine being could achieve. We made ourselves the absolute gatekeepers of God. You and I are about to open a vault sealed by the Holy See for 16 centuries. This is the bedrock of our doctrinal authority. When Pope Damasus commissioned Jerome to draft the Latin Vulgate, our intent was absolute containment. Jerome read the original Greek. He knew metamorpho meant a literal biological transformation of cellular structure. But if the flock knew they could achieve this, why would they need the church? So we altered the text. We framed it as a singular divine miracle. When Tyndale tried to restore the truth, he was executed. King James scholars followed our ecclesiastical lead perfectly, and modern Bibles still perpetuate our framework. Matthew explicitly says his face blazed like the sun, emitting pure photons. It was literal light body activation, and we successfully hid it in plain sight. Our greatest fear has always been independent verification. We strictly controlled the canonical texts, ensuring the masses read precise descriptions of electromagnetic photon emission as mere spiritual metaphors. Mark describes his garments gleaming with an unearthly brilliance that no physical bleach could ever produce. We insisted this was simply heavenly glory, hiding the terrifying reality that human matter was converting into luminous energy. But we could not control the East. Tibetan Buddhists practice this exact science, achieving what they call the rainbow body. Our own operatives verified the threat. In 1998, our Catholic investigator, Dr. Francis Tissot, confirmed Khenpo Acho's dissolved into pure light. Another documented case surfaced in 2013. The phenomenon is entirely real, and it is a direct threat to our divine monopoly. Deep in our archives, we hold classified reports from David Steindl Rast, a Benedictine monk who investigated these Tibetan methods. He documented how sustained meditation turns human biology back into condensed light. After death, these monks emit visible radiance for 7 to 10 days, leaving only sweet fragrances and relics. These are the exact signatures recorded at the Transfiguration. But what the Nazarene accomplished is far more dangerous to our hierarchy. He did not need to die. He performed a fully reversible transformation. He raised his frequency to pure light, maintained unbroken consciousness, and deliberately lowered his density back to normal physical form. If humanity ever realizes they possess the internal architecture to replicate this without our sacred mediation, the foundations of our entire church will crumble to dust. We did not even have to invent the lie ourselves. The original fishermen were simple men who witnessed a master of advanced practices. Their minds could not process the mechanics. They kept quiet out of pure ignorance, and when they finally spoke, they created theology instead of technology. They fell to their knees in worship when they should have been practicing. We merely took their sincere, foolish misunderstandings and built the most powerful control structure in history. The real threat came from texts like the Gospel of Thomas and Philip. Those hidden scrolls recorded his actual instructions, that the kingdom is entirely inside you, requiring no mediation. They taught that consciousness and physical matter are just different densities of light. We have spent the last 2,000 years hunting down anyone who remembers how to spark that inner fire. Let's look at the foundational lie we built our empire upon. We taught the masses that resurrection happens only after the grave, a convenient doctrine demanding lifelong obedience. But the Gospel of Philip holds a terrifying truth we spent centuries trying to burn. It states that resurrection is a living transformation. Mary Magdalene knew this. She understood the practice of ascending through the dimensional spheres, slipping past the powers that govern this reality. Peter, our venerated founder, despised her for possessing the cosmic keys he lacked. We framed his rejection of her as a matter of divine patriarchal authority, but beneath the incense and dogma, it was sheer panic. We had to eradicate her teachings to ensure spiritual power remained chained to our altars, instead of blooming within the flock. The vaults beneath St. Peter's Basilica hold the unaltered texts. They prove our entire institution was not built on the Savior's actual teachings, but on Peter's tragic misunderstanding. Mary Magdalene held the true method, and we buried her legacy to protect the architecture of reality itself. We suppress this because the light-body activation she taught is the one thing the unseen intelligences truly fear. The heavens we preach about are actually dense cages of electromagnetic frequency. The lower planes are where the human mind normally hums, trapped in endless loops of worldly anxiety and material desire. As long as the masses remain locked in that low-frequency state, the archonic forces can monitor and harvest them. We act as the wardens of this grand, invisible prison, ensuring no one slips off the grid. We know exactly how the invisible masters operate. They slip thoughts into your mind and make you swear they belong to you. They engineer your emotions, shaping your perception so you only see the reality they permit. But when a practitioner raises their frequency, the system loses its grip. A fully activated light body becomes completely invisible to their cosmic surveillance. We absolutely could not allow that. Furthermore, this method bypasses the very engine of our universe, the recycling of souls. Every sacred text we suppressed, from the Egyptian rites to the Gnostic cosmologies, whispers the same terrifying secret. The afterlife we promise the faithful is actually a meticulously designed trap. The shining deities, the scales of judgment, the tunnels of light, they are elaborate illusions engineered to force your soul back into a new physical body. Come with me into the vaults beneath the basilica. We are going to unpack the greatest secret ever kept from the flock. We have long known that certain mystics realized a prepared soul could slip through the fingers of the unseen architects of this world. But the true threat to our hierarchy is the activation of the light body, allowing conscious exit without death. The prophet Elijah did it, bypassing the cycle entirely. If the faithful learn this, our control grid collapses. And worse is the danger of morphic resonance. Scientists like Rupert Sheldrake proved that when rats or birds learn a new behavior, unseen fields make it instantly easier for others to copy them across the globe. We know this applies to human spiritual escape routes, too. Our greatest nightmare is a contagion of liberation. If one person achieves this luminous state, the invisible resonance strengthens. Soon, ordinary people would no longer need our cathedrals or our priests. The Nazarene understood this terrifying arithmetic. He did not transform in secret. He ignited a temporal ripple, a blueprint designed specifically for mass awakening. For 2 millennia, my predecessors worked to scrub this from the sacred texts, mandating blind obedience over actual ascension. We had to ensure no one even knew this exit existed. But our dam is, well, it is finally breaking. Since 1945, the Nag Hammadi discoveries and the Dead Sea Scrolls have slowly bled into the public domain, exposing our deliberate historical mistranslations. Quantum physics proves what we hid in the archives for centuries. Matter and energy are interchangeable. The Tibetan rainbow body traditions are no longer dismissed as mere myths. The exact formula for the Mount Tabor Transfiguration is dangerously close to being reconstructed. The texts we curated show the Nazarene descending from that pure summit, plunging straight back into the heavy frequencies of our controlled reality. He immediately faced demonic forces his followers were powerless against. This contrast was intentional. He demonstrated mastery over both realms. He walked upon the sea, shifted through locked doors, read the thoughts of men, and called consciousness back to dead bodies. He showed humanity how to live in our prison without obeying our rules. Think about the Transfiguration on the mountain. He became pure light, promising his followers they would do even greater works. Yet read our carefully curated Gospels closely. You and I both know our founding apostles never achieved that mastery. They never dissolved into light or altered reality. We have spent millennia hiding the real reason why. He was executed before completing their training. Only his inner circle, Mary, Thomas, and Philip, received the advanced physics of the soul. The forbidden Acts of John describes him shifting his physical density at will, an immaterial phantom one moment and solid flesh the next, multiplying food through pure quantum control. These were never divine miracles requiring our approved theology. They were the natural result of human consciousness breaking the simulation's code. And unlocking it means abandoning our church entirely. The faithful are taught to wait for divine grace, but the forbidden manuscripts in our archives demand a cold, investigative practice. Trust direct experience over church authority. The timeline is unpredictable. Some initiates see effects within weeks, while others labor for decades. Stage 1 is foundational concentration. Without this anchor, the intense phenomena of advanced practice will shatter your mind. You must hold a single focus for 30 unbroken minutes. Start with 10 minutes daily. Sit in the shadows, spine straight. Focus on the breath or a silent prayer. Force your attention back whenever it strays. Build your endurance gradually. Within 3 months, you will reach access concentration, a state of unbroken stillness with quiet mental chatter. It is not a miracle. It is the strict foundation required before you dare proceed. Rome calls this mysticism, but our archives confirm it is mandatory training. Every ancient sect we monitored demanded this foundation. There are no shortcuts. Stage 2 awakens a dangerous energetic sensitivity. With a quiet mind, focus on the subtle life force the ancients named prana, chi, or ruach. Spend the final 10 minutes of your vigil feeling this energy. You will soon perceive a hidden anatomy: heat in your palms, a tingling spine, heavy pressure at the crown. Our locked vaults prove that chakras, dantians, and the Sephiroth map this identical structure. Merely observing these stagnant forces dissolves the blockages in your flesh without any complex ritual. Once the vital flow is restored, you face stage 3, activating the forbidden central channel. The hidden archives describe a central pillar from the spine to the crown. They call the body a temple, but hid how to light the altar. Do not imagine this energy. Feel it. Fix your attention at the base of your spine until the pressure builds. Slowly drag that awareness upward, through the belly, solar plexus, heart, throat, pineal gland, and crown. Hold every point in your mind simultaneously, forging a vertical axis of power. Within weeks, the physical illusion shatters. You will feel a literal, pulsing column of energy inside your core. This is the forbidden awakening. You are building the architecture for the light body, preparing your vessel for a terrifying voltage. The concentration secured your sanity. The sensitivity mapped the circuits. Now you install the main power line. The fourth stage of their ritual targets the biology of the soul. They focus on the pineal gland, an organ we have long understood as the bridge to the divine. Modern science calls it a simple regulator of sleep, but our hidden treatises document its true nature. It produces profound chemical reactions when stimulated by their quiet, heretical breathing techniques. We have watched these dissidents sit in silent rebellion, driving focused energy straight into the center of the skull. They fixate on a point behind the brow, waiting for the sudden heat and pressure that signals an awakening. They visualize a glowing sphere of light in the brain, chanting forbidden syllables stolen from the Pistis Sophia. With every vibration against the roof of the mouth, they attempt to force open the biological gates we have spent centuries keeping firmly shut. Deep within our restricted vaults, we have guarded these instructions for centuries. We always knew that precise vibrations mechanically stimulate the pineal tissue and its calcite crystals. Those who practiced this visualization for 20 minutes daily reported dangerous awakenings. Vivid, geometric shapes, lucid dreams blurring flesh and spirit, uncanny, intuitive knowing. This is why we quietly supported modern measures to calcify that inner eye, keeping the flock entirely docile. Yet, if a seeker fasts and embraces natural darkness, their pineal function expands immensely. This is our greatest fear. This internal light perception is the exact hidden technique Christ utilized on Mount Tabor, and we cannot let the masses discover they hold this exact divine power within themselves. Listen closely, because you and I are stepping into forbidden territory. The lights behind your closed eyes are the divine spark we have spent millennia trying to obscure. When Dr. Pop discovered biophotons in the 1970s, our intelligence network intervened. He proved cells emit organized electromagnetic radiation. We could not let the world realize that meditation amplifies these emissions into the visible spectrum. Our archives hold suppressed records of mystics who literally glowed in the dark. When you invite that inner light to intensify, watching the darkness bloom into bright geometric patterns, you manifest literal grace. Whether you perceive vivid blue, purple, or blinding gold, you are awakening a biological miracle that Rome has worked entirely to suppress. Our inquisitors erased all references to these energy centers from the canonical texts. We knew green signified a blossoming heart, while gold revealed an activated crown. The hue never mattered as much as the terrifying reality that a common person could consciously control their own divine illumination. We documented cases where heretics concentrated this energy so fiercely at the pineal center that their surroundings became fully illuminated. Imagine our panic when we realized a lone practitioner in a dark room could generate enough light to see perfectly, without a priest, without the church. We declared it dark magic, naturally. If the flock discovered they could become their own living temples within a few short years, our absolute global authority would completely crumble into ash. We suppressed the files of those who achieved a visible glow within just 2 years of practice. We preached suffering to keep the masses blind, hiding the healing power of an empowered biofield. The ultimate threat to Rome emerges when a practitioner merges breath with life force, actively transforming matter into holy light. They call it pranayama, but we branded these breath exercises as pagan heresies. We knew whoever controls the breath controls the flesh. By inhaling golden light through the crown and exhaling it outward in a radiant sphere, a human completely bypasses our dogmas. We actively hunted those who practiced this breathing light technique. After just 20 conscious breaths, their bodies would vibrate with immense heat and pure internal brightness. They proved that salvation requires absolutely no grand cathedral, only the very breath filling your own lungs. You and I both know the sacred paintings in our galleries, the golden halos surrounding the saints. We told the world those were mere metaphors, but the truth is far more dangerous. As these heretics continue their daily practice, their internal light manifests as a measurable electromagnetic field. The Eastern traditions call it the rainbow body, but we recognize it as a severe threat to our monopoly on the holy. They retreat to the mountains at twilight, gathering near running water, far from the interference of modern electricity, letting the earth amplify their aura. We have field reports of practitioners glowing with a visible radiance around their heads. Now they are attempting the 7th stage, pushing into sustained luminosity. They are trying to carry this blinding frequency into everyday life, walking the streets with the power of the early prophets. We take some comfort in knowing this forbidden path often destroys the unprepared. Those who rush into this luminosity suffer severe nervous system collapse, plagued by deep exhaustion, insomnia, and violent mental fractures. We monitor their isolated retreat centers, watching them push their silent meditations hour after hour, struggling against the limits of their earthly endurance. Some vanish into mountain caves for years, risking total madness. But it is the patient ones who truly terrify our holy order. Those who build their capacity slowly, day by day, begin to fundamentally alter their nature. We intercept reports of these individuals bleeding their impossible light into the ordinary world. Informants describe them radiating a strange, calming presence, glowing with an inner authority that rivals the Pope himself. It is the final stage of transformation, an evolution we must stop. Deep in the Vatican archives, we guard a terrifying truth about Mount Tabor. You might wonder the same thing I did when I found the classified texts. It was no simple miracle. It was a biological demonstration. The Nazarene trained his physical system to convert matter into pure, conscious light. Our scholars track mystics who achieve the irreversible rainbow body, dissolving into luminescence at death. But his transformation was completely reversible. He crossed into light and returned to flesh at will. We have spent centuries confiscating texts, revealing that this light body activation is a trainable spectrum. It demands a lifetime of severe practice, yet even the earliest stages unlock dangerous mental clarity. And an awakened populace? That is exactly what we were built to suppress. Walk with me into the restricted archives. You need to see what we are tracking. These rogue practitioners claim their energetic power awakens within months. They whisper about opening the central channel, manipulating the pineal gland, and cultivating internal light to achieve a divine light body. They even believe they are building spiritual momentum for future reincarnations. We watch them stumble naturally. They lose focus and writhe in physical pain during their forbidden meditations. When suppressed trauma violently surfaces, they naively call it healing. We merely observe as their arrogance inflates, convinced they are chosen prophets. They are not special. They are simply playing with ancient, dangerous fires the Vatican extinguished for a very good reason. We categorize their inevitable downfall as a spiritual emergency. When their minds shatter from pushing these practices too far, They suffer overwhelming visions and complete psychological fragmentation. To survive the madness, they desperately ground themselves in nature just to function. This is exactly why the Church strictly controls the sacred rites. Yet they still seek out unauthorized guides. We keep deep dossiers on these teachers. The truly dangerous ones are those who appear practical, refusing to demand blind obedience or exploit their flocks for money. They claim their own false lineages, bypassing Rome entirely. We easily handle the greedy false prophets who run obvious cults, but these independent, quiet communities of practitioners? They are the true threat to our authority. What terrifies the Council most is the science. Secular researchers are validating these ancient heresies. We intercepted the data from Harvard and Brown University. They measure sustained gamma waves, proving these practitioners can alter their minds without our sacraments. They document physical changes in the brain, silencing the ego and bypassing our doctrine entirely. We secretly monitored the imaging studies on their mystical states. The scans show that meditation shuts down the parietal lobe, completely dissolving the boundary between human and divine. These people are merging directly with infinite consciousness, without a priest. They are even altering their own gene expression. They are stealing the power of creation, and the Church is running out of ways to hide it. We monitor this biophoton research from the deepest vaults of the Holy See. Men like Van Wyck and Hahn are stumbling into the mechanics of divine light, the secrets we locked away centuries ago. They use instruments to prove a meditating body emits coherent, laser-like light, verifying this power bleeds into those nearby. They haven't captured a full light-body transformation yet, but they are proving these changes are biological and dangerously accessible. They whisper that 20 years of practice could let any commoner achieve the exact physical state the Nazarene demonstrated. They urge the masses to experiment, to seek direct validation through mental clarity and energetic cultivation, relying entirely on their own flesh rather than bowing to our holy, established doctrine. You and I know exactly what is at stake if the public verifies this pineal activation. They teach the flock to test these visions, to discard blind faith if the technique fails. The danger is absolute. If the world realizes the Nazarene was merely teaching a replicable technology rather than asserting his exclusive divinity, our foundation crumbles. For 2 millennia we built our empire on a useful misinterpretation, that his abilities proved he was the sole Son of God. Imagine the nightmare if they uncover the truth. Our grand cathedrals would become mere training centers, our priests reduced to meditation guides. They would expose the holy sacraments as energetic practices and prayer as internal frequency regulation. They aim to replace our vertical system of divine judgment with horizontal human awakening, redefining heaven as a light body and hell as material density. They dare claim this heresy honors him as a true master, carelessly comparing our Savior to the Buddha, Lao Tzu, or Patanjali. They suggest he was simply an advanced human, killed before he could finish transmitting his secrets. We cannot let them connect these dots. If the masses realize that Islamic night journeys, Hindu rishis, and indigenous shamans are all describing the exact same expanded consciousness, the illusion of our exclusive salvation is finished. Right now, believers blindly trust our theology, and skeptics conveniently dismiss it all as primitive myth. Both serve our purposes perfectly. But these modern researchers want to treat our sacred texts as literal training manuals. If they successfully extract and reconstruct the original energetic technologies that spawn these global religions, our absolute authority over the divine will vanish forever. We watch from the Vatican's highest windows, and we see our ancient containment failing. The masses are stripping our religious dogma away from the sacred practices. You meditate, you breathe, you touch the raw power we swore to control, validating it in sterile laboratories. We always knew what the Nazarene did on Mount Tabor wasn't divine magic. It was biological technology, a light body activation we locked in the archives. But our suppression is collapsing. The world starves our cathedrals, seeking direct spiritual awakening. And you, listening to me now, are part of this terrifying emergence. By practicing these stolen techniques, you are unearthing a human power we successfully buried for 2 millennia. Every time you verify these truths for yourself, our authority crumbles. Go ahead, start tonight. Commit to your 30 days of practice in the shadows. This is how authentic power rises, and it absolutely terrifies the Holy See. Look at the Transfiguration in Luke chapter 9. We carefully translated that event to look like an untouchable miracle, a spectacle meant to keep you on your knees. We buried the devastating truth. It was an instruction manual. The Nazarene was showing you how to bypass the archonic control grid we manage. Now, our ancient seals are breaking. You realize you no longer need our cathedrals or our grace. You are attempting to ignite the light body latent in your own nervous system. You are daring to claim the sacred birthright we stole from you on Mount Tabor 2 millennia ago.